In the quiet towns of America, there are houses no one dares to enter. But what happens when someone ignores the warnings and steps inside? Tonight, you'll hear a true ghost encounter so chilling, it will leave you breathless. This isn't just a story, it's a warning. And just when they thought it was only an empty hallway, something moved. If you want to feel the full chill of what happened next, and if you love terrifying ghost encounters like this, make sure you hit subscribe right now, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Who knows, your idea might be the next story we bring to life. It started on a cold autumn night in a quiet New England town. The kind of night where the streets were empty, and the only sound was the wind scraping fallen leaves along the pavement. Everyone said the old Miller house at the edge of town was cursed, but nobody ever gave a real reason. Some whispered about a fire in the 1920s, others about a missing family who vanished without a trace. What made it worse was that the house was never torn down. It just sat there, sagging deeper into the ground every year, like it was waiting. On that night, 3 friends, Evan, Claire, and Marcus, dared each other to step inside. They weren't kids anymore. They were college students home for fall break. But the house still had a pull, the kind of pull you can't explain, like it was calling their names. The porch groaned when they stepped on it. The screen door swung open before anyone touched it. Claire froze and whispered, "That's not the wind." Inside, the air was heavier than outside, damp like a basement even though every window was shattered. They could smell smoke, faint but sharp, like burnt wood clinging to the walls. Evan laughed nervously, trying to mask the chill crawling up his back. "It's just a house. Nothing's here." But as he spoke, Marcus's flashlight flickered and went out. When it blinked back on, a shadow moved across the hallway. Too fast, too tall, too deliberate to be any of them. Claire grabbed Evan's arm, so tightly her nails left marks. "Did you see that?" Nobody wanted to answer, because answering meant admitting it was real. The deeper they went, the more the house felt alive. The wallpaper seemed to breathe. The floor creaked even when no one moved. At the end of the hallway stood a door, the only one still shut. A strip of scorched wood marked the frame, blackened like it had been burned but never repaired. Marcus swallowed hard. "We shouldn't." But the door handle turned on its own, slow and deliberate, metal squealing against silence. The room inside was untouched, as if fire or time had never touched it. A child's toys sat neatly in a corner. A rocking chair swayed though no one was near it. On the wall, in faded chalk, were words scrawled across the plaster. "I never left." Claire's voice cracked. "Who wrote that?" And then, from the corner of the room, came the sound of small footsteps. The rocking chair stopped moving. Marcus lifted his flashlight toward the toys. The beam caught something, tiny hands pressing against the wall from the inside, as if someone was trying to push through. And then a voice, faint but clear, whispered right behind Evan's ear, though no one stood there. "Why did you come back?" Evan spun around, his breath catching in his throat, but nothing was there, only the cracked doorway and the endless black of the hall behind them. The whisper still lingered in his ear, as if the words hadn't faded, but clung to him like smoke. Claire's face had gone pale. She pointed at the wall, her hand shaking. The small handprints were changing. They stretched, warping into long, finger-like streaks that dragged downward, leaving trails like wet ash. Marcus stepped back, his voice low and trembling. "That's not a child." But before anyone could move, the door slammed shut with a force that rattled the whole frame. The sound echoed through the house, bouncing off the walls until it felt like the house itself was breathing with them, around them. Claire yanked on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. She pounded on the wood, her voice cracking as she screamed, "Let us out." Evan pressed his ear to the door, desperate for some sign of the world outside. What he heard wasn't footsteps, or wind, or even silence. It was humming. A soft, low tune, like a lullaby, drifting from nowhere and everywhere at once. Marcus's flashlight flickered again. For a split second, the room was thrown into darkness. When the beam snapped back on, the toys in the corner weren't toys anymore. They were charred, melted shapes, blackened and twisted as if pulled straight from a fire. The rocking chair creaked once more, this time not back and forth, but forward, toward them, as if something unseen had just stood up. Evan whispered, almost to himself, "We shouldn't be here." And then the lullaby stopped. In the silence that followed, the air shifted, heavy and suffocating. A figure began to take shape in the far corner of the room, faint at first, like smoke curling in the dark. Claire's voice was barely audible, a whisper breaking apart. "It's watching us." The figure thickened, smoke turning to form, form turning to flesh. A woman stood in the corner now, her dress scorched and torn, her hair clinging in damp strands across her face. Her eyes, they weren't eyes at all. They were hollow pits glowing faintly with ember-red light, like coals buried deep in ash. Claire stumbled backward until her shoulders hit the wall. Evan couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Marcus lifted the flashlight again, and the beam landed on her face. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She only tilted her head slowly, the way a predator studies its prey. The smell of smoke grew stronger. Ash seemed to fall from the ceiling in thin flakes, coating the floor around them. The words on the wall, "I never left," burned brighter, glowing as if carved in fire. Then the woman spoke. Her voice was layered, one tone on top of another, like multiple people whispering in unison. "You shouldn't have opened the door." Marcus's grip on the flashlight shook violently. "What do you want from us?" Her head snapped toward him with unnatural speed, and for a heartbeat, the room went silent again. Then the toys moved. One by one, they dragged across the floor on their own, scraping wood, forming a perfect circle around the three friends. The rocking chair tipped onto its side with a crack, and the circle sealed shut. Claire's scream ripped through the room as the Ember-Eyed woman stepped forward, her charred feet leaving blackened prints across the floorboards. Evan grabbed Claire's hand, trying to pull her toward the door, but the handle twisted under his grip, searing hot, burning his palm. The woman raised one hand, palm open, and the lullaby began again, this time louder, vibrating through the walls, filling their chests, making it hard to breathe. And then the lights from the flashlight went out completely. Darkness swallowed them whole. Something cold brushed across Evan's neck. A whisper followed. "This house remembers you." Evan froze, every muscle in his body locked as the whisper sank into his skin like ice. Claire's hand trembled in his, her nails digging into his palm. In the pitch-dark room, the sound of her breathing was ragged, uneven. Marcus fumbled with the flashlight, shaking it violently until it sputtered back to life for a split second. Just long enough to reveal the woman standing inches from Evan's face. Her hollow eyes glowed brighter now, flickers of flame dancing in the emptiness, her mouth stretched too wide, too wrong, into a smile that didn't belong on any human. The light snapped off again. Claire gasped. "She's moving, she's closer." The floor groaned under weight that wasn't theirs. Every step sounded like wood splintering, creeping nearer, circling them in the dark. Then, from the far corner, another sound joined in. Small footsteps. The rapid patter of a child running in circles around the room. It grew faster, faster, until the three of them were spinning in place, trying to follow the invisible sound. Marcus shouted, his voice breaking. "Stop it! Show yourself!" The footsteps stopped. A child's giggle rose from behind him. He turned sharply, swinging the flashlight on. But before the beam could catch anything, icy fingers wrapped around his wrist. The light dropped to the floor, rolling, casting dizzying arcs across the warped wallpaper. In that stuttering glow, Evan saw it. Two shapes now, the woman with ember eyes, and beside her, a little boy, half-burned, skin blackened and peeling, clutching a toy soldier melted into his hand. The boy tilted his head, smiling with teeth too sharp for a child. "Play with me," he whispered. The door behind them rattled violently, as if something on the other side was trying to force its way in, not out. The handle twisted, shaking harder and harder. Claire screamed, pressing herself against the wall. "It's not just them, something else is here." The lullaby began again, louder than before, but now it wasn't one voice. It was dozens. Men, women, children, all humming together in a haunting chorus that made the house itself tremble. And then the walls began to bleed. Thick streaks of dark liquid seeped down the faded wallpaper, slow at first, then faster, dripping onto the floorboards with a sickening patter. The smell hit them next, not iron, not paint, but blood, heavy and metallic, filling the room until Claire gagged and covered her mouth. Evan's knees buckled as he tried to drag her away from the wall, but his burned hand slipped on the slick floor. Marcus snatched up the fallen flashlight, but when he flicked it on, the beam only caught more horror, the handprints. Every inch of the walls was covered now, hundreds of handprints smeared in crimson, big and small, some pressed fresh and dripping as if unseen palms had just touched the plaster. The boy with the melted toy giggled again, his small body flickering like static, there 1 second, gone the next, reappearing closer each time. He stopped in front of Claire, staring up at her with hollow sockets where his eyes should have been. "They stayed with us," he said softly, "and now you will too." Claire sobbed, clutching Evan's arm, but before he could pull her back, the child lunged. His burnt hands passed through her chest like smoke, yet she convulsed as though something had been torn out of her. Her scream rattled through the room, sharp and piercing, until it suddenly cut off. Her body went still. Evan shook her desperately. Claire! Claire! But when her head lifted, her eyes glowed the same ember-red as the woman's. Her lips curved into that same impossible smile. Marcus stumbled back, whispering over and over. No, no, no. The circle of toys on the floor rattled violently, the charred pieces dragging closer together, sealing tighter, glowing faintly like molten iron. The chorus of voices grew deafening now, shaking dust from the ceiling, vibrating the floor beneath their feet. The woman reached out her hand toward Evan, her voice overlapping with Claire's now, echoing in layers that filled every inch of space. You opened the door. You belong to the house. The walls bulged outward as though something massive was pressing from the other side, the bleeding streaks widening, cracking open. From the darkness inside those cracks, more hands began to crawl through, pale, burned, broken, clawing for escape. Marcus dropped the flashlight. It shattered, plunging them into total darkness. And in that endless black, Evan felt dozens of cold hands grip his ankles, his wrists, his throat, dragging him down into the floorboards as the house whispered in unison. Stay! Evan thrashed violently, splinters cutting into his skin as the floorboards beneath him split apart like rotten teeth. The cold hands yanked harder, dragging his body downward inch by inch. His screams echoed through the black void, swallowed instantly by the chorus of voices. Marcus lunged forward, grabbing Evan's arm with both hands, pulling with every ounce of strength left in him. I'm not letting go, he shouted, his voice cracking. But the more he pulled, the deeper Evan sank, the wood groaning and breaking apart as if the house itself wanted to consume him. Claire, or what had become of her, just stood there, her ember-red eyes fixed on them, a smile carved into her face. She tilted her head like a doll and whispered, It's useless. He's already theirs. Marcus locked eyes with her, rage and terror twisting inside him. You're not Claire. You'll never be her. Her laughter was wrong, layered and echoing, too loud for one body. She stepped closer, every footfall leaving scorched prints across the floor. Evan's fingers slipped in Marcus's grip, his nails tearing into his friend's skin. Don't let me go, he begged, tears mixing with the blood on his face. Don't let them. He was yanked violently downward, his chest disappearing into the floorboards, cold hands clutching tighter, pulling him into the darkness below. Marcus screamed, pulling harder, but Claire crouched beside him now, close enough for him to see the ash flaking from her skin. She leaned in, her burning eyes inches from his. If you save him, she whispered, her voice a hiss of fire and smoke, you take his place. The floor groaned again, splitting wider, the pit beneath glowing faintly like the embers of a dying fire. Shapes moved in the glow, faces, dozens of them, screaming silently, reaching upward with desperate arms. Evan's face was almost gone now, his mouth open in a final, voiceless scream, his eyes wide with terror. Marcus felt his grip slipping. The hands below were reaching for him too. The house was offering him a choice. Marcus's arms trembled as his grip on Evan weakened, sweat and blood slicking their hands. His chest heaved with each breath, torn between saving his best friend and saving himself. The pit below roared now, no longer just whispers, but a chorus of agonized wails, 100 voices clawing to be heard. The glow burned brighter, flames licking up between the cracks in the floorboards, casting the room in a hellish red. Evan's eyes locked onto his, wild with fear. Please, Marcus. Don't let them take me. The burned hands pulled harder, dragging Evan down to his shoulders. Marcus planted his feet, straining with all his strength, his veins bulging against his skin. And then, Claire's hand touched his shoulder. It was ice cold, the kind of cold that burns, and her voice poured into his ear like smoke. If you hold on, they'll drag you too. One must stay. One must go. Marcus's head snapped toward her, rage breaking through his terror. That's not Claire. She wouldn't say that. Her smile widened, unnatural, splitting her lips too far. Claire is gone. I am what remains. Evan's grip was slipping. His nails raked bloody lines down Marcus's wrist, his voice breaking into sobs. Please. I don't want to die here. The floor beneath them cracked wider, a thunderous snap splitting the wood. Marcus saw more faces writhing in the glow. Men, women, children, all with ember eyes, all reaching, all waiting. The house was shaking violently now, dust raining from the ceiling, walls buckling inward as though the structure itself hungered for an answer. Marcus's own scream tore out of his throat as he felt himself being dragged closer to the pit. The choice pressed against his chest like a weight, save his friend, and be taken with him, or let go. And in that final moment, Evan's fingers slipped completely free. Marcus stumbled backward onto the blood-soaked floorboards, his breath shattering, his eyes wide with horror as Evan's body was yanked down into the pit with a sound that was not a scream, but silence, sudden, absolute silence. The house stopped shaking. The cracks sealed shut. And Marcus was left alone in the room, the circle of toys still glowing faintly around him, Claire's ember-eyed eyes fixed on his face. She stepped closer, her voice soft now, almost tender. You chose. Now you belong to me. Marcus staggered back, his chest heaving, his eyes fixed on Claire's face, or the thing wearing her face. Her footsteps echoed unnaturally in the silence, louder than they should have been, each one pounding in his ears like a heartbeat. The circle of toys rattled again, spinning slightly, dragging themselves into tighter formation. The air thickened until Marcus could barely breathe, each gasp cutting like knives. He backed against the wall, his palms pressed to the peeling wallpaper. No, I didn't choose you. I didn't choose this. Her smile widened, stretching inhumanly, her ember eyes flickering like fire through smoke. You didn't have to. The house chose for you. The room seemed to bend inward, walls warping, ceilings sagging closer. The smell of ash and rot thickened. Marcus's skin prickled with heat, as though he was standing too close to a furnace. Then the floorboards began to pulse. Not shake, not creak, pulse. Like a heartbeat beneath the wood. Slow. Heavy. Alive. Claire tilted her head, her voice almost sweet. Do you hear it? That's not the house. That's us. You're already part of it. Marcus dropped to his knees, clutching his head. No, I'm not. I'm not staying here. The toys around him jerked violently, their charred pieces rising off the floor and hovering midair. One by one, they pointed toward him, dolls with cracked faces, soldiers with melted limbs, wooden cars blackened from fire. The voices returned, whispering all at once, a storm of sound inside his skull. Asterisk stay. Stay. Stay, asterisk. He scrambled for the door, his burned hands fumbling desperately at the knob. To his shock, it turned. The door creaked open to reveal the hallway, black and endless. For the first time, escape seemed possible. Marcus hesitated, his body shaking, eyes darting back to Claire. She was still smiling, still watching. She didn't move to stop him. Instead, she whispered with that layered, echoing voice. You can run, Marcus, but you'll never leave. The door slammed shut behind him as he bolted into the hallway. The corridor stretched on forever, longer than the house could ever contain. No windows, no doors, only walls closing tighter the farther he ran. His footsteps echoed, bouncing back at him until he realized. There was another set of footsteps chasing him. Getting closer. Marcus's lungs burned as he sprinted down the endless hallway, his sneakers slamming against warped wood. The footsteps behind him grew louder, heavier, pounding in rhythm with his own heartbeat. No matter how fast he ran, they were closing in. He risked a glance over his shoulder. Nothing. The corridor was empty, yet the sound kept coming, echoing closer, matching his every stride. Stop running. The whisper crawled up the back of his neck, though no one was there. He stumbled, nearly falling, his hands slamming against the wall for balance. The wallpaper peeled away under his palm, leaving ash and soot clinging to his skin. He pushed forward, desperate, until suddenly, a door appeared on the left. It hadn't been there before. He froze, chest heaving, torn between the unknown behind him and the unknown waiting inside. The footsteps grew louder, closer, now thundering just a few feet away. With a desperate cry, Marcus threw the door open and stumbled through. The room inside was small, suffocating. A single light bulb swung overhead, buzzing faintly, casting long, twitching shadows against the walls. And on those walls, dozens of photographs. Old, yellowed Polaroids, stapled into the plaster, each one showing faces twisted in terror. Men, women, children, all mid-scream, all reaching out as though they'd been captured in their final moments. Marcus stepped closer, his hand shaking as he reached for one. The photo was dated, scrawled in messy handwriting, 1953. The one beside it, 1977. The next, 1991. Then, asterisk asterisk 2008. Asterisk asterisk. Every decade, new faces added. Then his stomach dropped. At the very bottom, pinned in fresh ink, was one more photograph. His own face. Snapped in that moment, mouth open, eyes wide with horror, hand frozen mid-reach. The bulb above him flickered violently. The footsteps had stopped outside the door. And then, a child's laugh echoed from the shadows of the room. Marcus spun toward the sound, his breath ragged, every nerve in his body screaming to run. But there was nowhere left to go. The room had no windows, no exits, only the door he had come through, and now even that was gone, the wall seamless as if it had never existed. The light bulb above him flickered again, slower now, casting the photographs in strobing flashes of life and death. The faces on the walls seemed to shift, their mouths widening, their eyes following him, their screams echoing silently in his head. The laughter grew louder, circling him, bouncing from wall to wall, until it became not one child but many. Dozens of voices overlapping, chanting the same word over and over. Stay. Marcus pressed his hands to his ears, but the sound burrowed deeper, vibrating through his bones. The floor trembled beneath him, the photographs peeled themselves free of the wall, swirling upward, spiraling around him in a storm of faces. In a flash of the bulb, he saw Claire among them, her true face, not twisted, not burned, but weeping. She mouthed something he couldn't hear. Then the bulb went out. The laughter stopped. Silence. Marcus's heartbeat was the only sound in the suffocating dark. He took a step back, his foot crunching on broken glass. Another step, and then the floor beneath him gave way. He plunged into the abyss, the photographs raining down around him, the faces stretching into endless streaks of light as he fell. And as the black swallowed him whole, the house's voice whispered one final time, soft, almost gentle. You never leave. The Miller house stood silent at the edge of town, its windows empty, its walls sagging deeper into the earth. Another autumn breeze passed, carrying the faintest sound from within. The low, haunting echo of footsteps that never stopped.